First Contact Chaos. The galactic year 3157 marked what many species would later call the beginning of the end, the day humanity made first contact with the wider galaxy. Not that humans saw it that way. To them, it was just another Tuesday. Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel, Curiosity, had been expecting many things when her ship detected the massive alien vessel approaching. First contact protocols, dramatic speeches, perhaps even some tension. What she hadn't expected was bureaucracy. "What do you mean, we need to file a Form X-227-B for preliminary contact procedures?" she asked, staring at the holographic projection of the alien representative, a tall, silvery being with what appeared to be tentacles made of light. The alien, who had introduced itself as High Administrator Vectra of the Galactic Council, pulsed with what might have been irritation. "As I explained, Commander, all first contact scenarios must follow proper protocols. You cannot simply appear in Council space without the proper documentation." Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. After years of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, after all the preparation for this moment, she was being asked to fill out paperwork. "We didn't know we needed documentation. We just finished testing our first quantum tunnel drive and thought we'd explore a bit." The alien's light tentacles flickered rapidly. "You just decided to explore? Without permits? Without environmental impact studies? Without completing the standard species intelligence assessment?" "Well, yeah," Sarah shrugged. "That's kind of our thing. We see something interesting, we check it out. But, that's not how it's done." Vectra's form was now pulsing with what was definitely agitation. "There are procedures. Protocols. You need at least 3 different committees to approve deep space exploration." Sarah glanced at her first officer, Mike O'Connor, who was trying very hard not to laugh. "Look," she said, turning back to the alien, "we're happy to fill out your forms. But maybe we could do that after we establish diplomatic relations." "We brought coffee," she added hopefully. "What is coffee?" Vectra asked, curiosity temporarily overriding bureaucratic indignation. 20 minutes later, the first official diplomatic meeting between humanity and the Galactic Council was underway, fueled by what Sarah's crew called their secret weapon, a fresh pot of Colombian dark roast. "This is remarkable," Vectra admitted, its light tentacles now pulsating with a gentle blue glow that Sarah was beginning to recognize as pleasure. "You simply grow these beans, heat water, and combine them?" "More or less," Sarah nodded, pouring another cup. "We find it helps with productivity. Especially when dealing with paperwork." "Fascinating," Vectra murmured, taking another sip. "Perhaps we could temporarily postpone the matter of your unauthorized exploration while we discuss this beverage further." And that was how humanity's first official contact with alien life ended up being a 2-hour coffee break that violated at least 15 different council protocols about unauthorized substance sharing during initial species contact. The real trouble started when Sarah and her crew were finally escorted to the Galactic Council's headquarters, a massive space station that looked like someone had combined every science fiction movie ever made into one impossibly elegant structure. "Now," Vectra announced, having consumed what Sarah estimated was the alien equivalent of 6 espresso shots, "we must discuss your species' integration into galactic society. There are only a few thousand regulations to review." "A few thousand?" Mike whispered to Sarah. "Don't worry," she whispered back. "I brought more coffee." The next few hours were a crash course in galactic bureaucracy. The council, it turned out, had regulations for everything. There were forms for what types of propulsion system species were allowed to develop, permits required for colonizing uninhabited worlds, and even guidelines for the proper way to name newly discovered celestial bodies. Apparently, humanity's practice of naming things after ancient gods was chaotically unstructured, and would need to be revised. But it was when they got to the technology classification system that things really went sideways. "I'm sorry," Sarah interrupted, holding up a hand. You're saying our quantum tunnel drive is classified as impossible technology? Vectra's tentacles twisted in what might have been embarrassment. Well, yes. According to our development scale, your species shouldn't be capable of quantum tunneling for at least another 1,000 years. You haven't even filled out the prerequisite forms for quantum physics comprehension. We kind of figured it out while trying to make pizza delivery faster, Mike offered helpfully. You know how it is, one day you're trying to get a pepperoni supreme across town in under 30 minutes, next thing you know, you've accidentally invented quantum tunneling. The room fell silent. Sarah could almost hear the collective blue screen of death happening in the alien bureaucrats' minds. You invented faster-than-light travel for pizza delivery, one of them finally managed to ask. Well, not just for pizza, Sarah clarified. It works great for tacos too. That was when the alarms started going off. Apparently, humanity's casual approach to physics-breaking technology development was classified as a Category 1 threat to galactic stability. Sarah thought this was a bit dramatic, but then again, they hadn't even gotten to the part where they'd have to explain memes yet. As security forces rushed into the room, Sarah calmly pulled out another thermos of coffee. Perhaps, she suggested to the increasingly frazzled Vectra, we should take another break. I brought something called a pumpkin spice latte. It's a human specialty. The security forces never stood a chance. By the end of the day, humanity had not only avoided being classified as a galactic threat but had somehow managed to establish coffee as a recognized diplomatic tool. The fact that this violated at least 20 different council regulations about cultural influence and substance distribution just made it more amusing to Sarah and her crew. As they prepared to return to Earth with their first batch of official, and extremely lengthy, council documentation, Sarah couldn't help but smile at Vectra's parting words. You humans are either the most brilliant or the most terrifying species we've ever encountered. Possibly both. Please bring more coffee next time. Little did the council know, coffee was just the beginning. Humanity was about to introduce the galaxy to something far more chaotic, human innovation unrestrained by common sense or proper paperwork. Back on their ship, Sarah looked at her crew. So, she said with a grin, who wants to be the one to tell them about energy drinks? Mike raised his hand. Can we wait until after we show them cat videos? I really want to see how they react to those first. Sarah laughed. The galaxy wasn't ready for humanity, but that had never stopped them before. And somewhere in the vast bureaucratic archives of the Galactic Council, a new file was being created, labeled Humanity, Approach with Caution, and Coffee. The adventure was just beginning. The Innovation Epidemic. 6 months after humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, High Administrator Vectra was developing what humans would call a chronic headache. The cause? A phenomenon that council scientists had dubbed innovative contamination, but which was really just humans being, well, human. They've done what? Vectra's light tentacles strobed with alarm as she read the latest report. Senior Analyst Sixthor, who had been assigned to monitor human activities, a job that had aged him considerably in the past few months, cleared his throat. The humans have improved the council's standardized waste management systems. Using something they call duct tape and what appears to be spare parts from their entertainment devices. But those systems took centuries to perfect. Vectra protested. They can't just make them better with random bits of junk. Zixthor supplied helpfully. Apparently they can. Efficiency has improved by 300%, and energy consumption is down by 75%. The maintenance crews are calling it a miracle. Though they're having trouble filing the proper forms for improvements made with shiny space tape and old game console parts. Vectra slumped in her hovering chair, her tentacles dimming to a frustrated purple. How? Just how? According to the humans, someone named MacGyver inspired them. Zixthor consulted his notes. They've been sharing their entertainment archives with other species. Apparently, it's classified as cultural exchange under Article 7, Section 3 of the First Contact Protocols. The protocols meant art and music, not instruction manuals for chaos. Vectra's tentacles flashed red. What else have they done? Zixthor pulled up a holographic list that stretched to the ceiling. Well, they introduced something called brainstorming sessions to the hive mind collective of Betelgeuse. The collective has since developed 50 new forms of faster-than-light travel, though they insist on calling them cool ideas we thought up during coffee break. Go on, Vectra said weakly. They showed the silicon crystalloids how to overclock their processing cores using principles derived from something called modding gaming PCs. The crystalloids are now computing at speeds we thought theoretically impossible, though they've developed an unfortunate habit of saying, but can it run Crisis, whenever they upgrade. The Mechanoid Collective has started a galaxy-wide video streaming service called SpaceTube after humans showed them cat videos. It's mostly robots doing increasingly improbable things and saying, "Hold my oil," before attempting them. Vectra's tentacles tied themselves in knots. Please tell me that's all. Oh, no, Zixthor said, almost cheerfully. The humans have also introduced something called hackathons to the annual Galactic Science Symposium. Last week, 3 graduate students from MIT and a bored quantum entity from the 11th dimension invented a new form of mathematics over pizza and energy drinks. They're calling it Yeet Calculus. Yeet, calculus? Vectra asked, dreading the answer. Yes. Apparently, it explains quantum uncertainty through the lens of what humans call yeet or be yeeted. The Quantum Physics Council is still trying to process the implications, but preliminary results suggest it might actually work. Just then, an urgent message flashed across Vectra's terminal. She read it and her tentacles went completely white. They've given the photosynthetic collective something called a DIY home improvement guide. Oh dear, Zixthor said. Which one? Something called Pinterest. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. On screens throughout the council chambers, reports started flooding in. The photosynthetic collective had begun upcycling entire solar systems. They were turning gas giants into what they called statement pieces, and rearranging asteroid belts into what human interior design principles apparently called open concept spaces. Get me Commander Chen. Vectra demanded. She started this mess, maybe she can stop it. Minutes later, Sarah Chen's hologram appeared in the chamber, looking annoyingly calm. Hi Administrator. How's the innovation epidemic going? You knew this would happen. Vectra accused. Sarah shrugged. We tried to warn you. Humanity's greatest superpower isn't our technology or our resources. It's our ability to look at literally anything and think, I bet I could make that better with some duct tape and spite. But why? Vectra's tentacles waved in exasperation. Why must you improve things that don't need improving? Need is a strong word, Sarah grinned. We don't improve things because we need to. We improve things because we can. Speaking of which, we've been looking at your bureaucratic systems. No. Vectra shouted, but it was too late. We've developed an AI that can process all your forms in milliseconds, Sarah continued cheerfully. We call it paperclips because it started as a paperclip maximizer before we convinced it that optimizing bureaucracy would be more fun. It's already filed retrospective permits for all our innovations. In triplicate. Zixthor was looking at his tablet with something like awe. She's right. All the forms are filed. Every innovation has been retroactively approved. It's beautiful. This is impossible, Vectra whispered. You can't just optimize bureaucracy. Oh, that's not even the best part, Sarah said, her grin widening. Wait until you see what happened when we introduced the quantum entities to human social media. Turns out, they're excellent at making memes. As if on cue, every screen in the council chambers suddenly filled with quantum memes, complex mathematical formulae combined with pictures of cats, each one somehow managing to be both theoretically groundbreaking and absolutely ridiculous. The quantum memes are actually advancing our understanding of universal constants, Zixthor reported, sounding impressed. Though I'm not sure why they all end with bottom text. Vectra slumped further in her chair. What's next? What could possibly be next? Well, Sarah said innocently, we've been thinking about introducing the galaxy to something we call freestyle engineering. What is freestyle engineering? Vectra asked, knowing she'd regret it. You know how we invented our quantum tunnel drive while trying to deliver pizza faster? Imagine that, but as an organized sport. Teams compete to solve impossible problems with whatever they have on hand. We're calling it Galactic Junkyard Wars. The security feeds began showing scenes from across the galaxy. Species that had taken millennia to develop spaceflight were now building impossible machines in their garages. The crystalloids had started a reality show about extreme computing, where they overcame processing limitations through increasingly creative uses of common household items. The Hive Mind Collective was hosting something called Open Mic Night, where they shared consciousness-expanding ideas through interpretive dance and stand-up comedy. Face it, High Administrator, Sarah said kindly. The galaxy was due for an upgrade. We're just helping things along. By the way, we're thinking of introducing energy drinks next week. Want a preview? Vectra's tentacles went limp. Will it make any difference if I say no? Probably not, Sarah admitted. But we did file all the proper forms for it. Your new AI seemed quite excited about the potential productivity improvements. As Vectra contemplated the chaos that humanity had unleashed upon an unsuspecting galaxy, she couldn't help but notice that, somehow, everything was running more efficiently than ever before. It was just doing so in ways that made absolutely no sense. Commander Chen, she said finally, your species is a plague of innovation. Thank you. Sarah beamed. We try our best. Oh, by the way, some of our engineering students have been looking at your faster-than-light drives. They think they can double the speed using rubber bands and something they call the power of anime. Should we file the improvement permits now or after we've already done it? Vectra just stared at her coffee cup, her seventh of the day, and wondered if it was too late to choose a different career. Perhaps something simpler, like herding quantum cats. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the innovation epidemic continued to spread. The mechanoids had started a podcast network. The quantum entities were becoming social media influencers. And humanity was just getting started. In the great administrative archives of the Galactic Council, a new category of forms had to be created just to handle human-inspired innovations. They labeled it, improvements we never asked for but somehow need now. The galaxy would never be the same. But at least the paperwork was getting done faster. The Great Coffee Crisis. Nobody expected coffee to become the galaxy's most valuable commodity. Nobody, that is, except the humans, who had long since learned to never underestimate the power of caffeine. Dr. Elena Martinez, Earth's newly appointed Minister of Galactic Coffee Relations, a position that had started as a joke but quickly became one of the most crucial diplomatic roles in human history, stood before the Galactic Economic Council, trying not to smile at the chaos unfolding before her. Order. Order in the chamber. High Administrator Vectra's tentacles strobed with emergency colors. We cannot allow the crystalloid empire to trade 3 solar systems for exclusive rights to something called a French press. Why not? The crystalloid ambassador's crystalline form sparkled with caffeinated enthusiasm. We've run the calculations. The energy output of properly caffeinated crystalline matrices exceeds standard fusion by 500%. We're calling it grounds for improvement. Elena bit her lip to keep from laughing. The pun would have been bad enough in English, the fact that it translated perfectly into galactic standard somehow made it worse. The issue, Vectra continued, her tentacles now tied in what Elena recognized as the knot of bureaucratic despair, is that coffee has become too integral to galactic infrastructure. The Mechanoid Collective is running their entire civilization on espresso-powered quantum processors. And they're running 300% more efficiently, Elena pointed out helpfully. Our records show a complete elimination of the blue screen of death since they switched from standard quantum computing to what they're calling Java-based processing. That's not what Java means. Vectra protested. Tell that to the mechanoids. They've already trademarked Quantum Java, and are selling it to other species. The Hive Mind Collective is particularly interested in their new, cloud computing, blend. As if to prove her point, a delegation of mechanoids floated into the chamber, their chrome surfaces gleaming with what appeared to be coffee-powered RGB lighting. Their leader, a towering figure designated Chief Engineer Coffee 01, raised a mechanical appendage. "We wish to announce our latest innovation," it declared, its voice modulated with what Elena swore was pride. "We have successfully integrated coffee grounds into our neural networks. We are now capable of processing information at speeds that violate several laws of physics, though we find we need to take considerably more coffee breaks." "That's impossible," one of the council's science advisors protested. "You can't just use organic beverage compounds to enhance quantum processing. Humans do the impossible before breakfast," Coffee 01 replied. "We merely added coffee to the breakfast. The results were optimal." Elena watched as the council chambers erupted into chaos. The photosynthetic collective was demanding access to something called a unicorn frappuccino, claiming it would revolutionize their photosynthesis processes. The quantum entities had become obsessed with latte art and were creating temporary pocket universes just to perfect their foam designs. "Dr. Martinez," Vectra said wearily, "your species has turned coffee into a Class 1 reality-altering substance." "To be fair," Elena replied, "we did file all the proper paperwork. Your AI seemed quite excited about the potential applications of caffeine in bureaucratic optimization." "Paperclips," Vectra muttered darkly. "We should never have let you introduce AI to coffee." The situation had started innocently enough. Humans had shared coffee as a gesture of goodwill during first contact. Nobody expected the crystalloids to discover that infusing their matrices with coffee grounds increased their processing power exponentially. Nobody predicted that the mechanoids would develop a taste for espresso and start building quantum computers that ran on pure caffeine. And absolutely nobody was prepared for what happened when the Hive Mind Collective discovered energy drinks. "We need to discuss the Red Bull incident," Vectra announced, causing the chamber to fall silent. Elena winced. Last week, the Hive Mind Collective had consumed approximately 10,000 gallons of Red Bull and spontaneously achieved collective enlightenment. They'd spent the next 48 hours inventing new forms of mathematics, composing operas in 12 dimensions, and posting an unprecedented number of cat videos to SpaceTube. "The collective has refused to return to normal spacetime," Vectra continued. "They claim they can see through time and have started leaving post-it notes for their past selves. Do you have any idea how many temporal paradox forms we've had to create?" "Look on the bright side," Elena suggested. "They've also solved 17 previously unsolvable physics equations and invented a new form of FTL travel based on what they call caffeine spacefolding. They've also started something called an energy drink pyramid scheme," Zixthor added, consulting his tablet. "They're convincing other species to become what they call boss babes and sell something called Monster Ultra to their friends." The chamber erupted again as various species began arguing over distribution rights to different coffee brands. The crystalloids had already established a monopoly on French press technology. The mechanoids were cornering the market on espresso machines. And the quantum entities had somehow managed to copyright the concept of coffee breaks in 13 different dimensions. "We need to regulate this," Vectra declared. "We need controls. Restrictions. Forms in triplicate." "Actually," Elena said, pulling out her tablet, I have a better idea. We've just developed something new. We call it a subscription service. The chamber fell silent again as Elena explained the concept of monthly coffee deliveries, customized blends, and exclusive member benefits. She could see the moment the idea took hold, spreading through the assembled species like a caffeine-powered virus. Think about it, she continued. Organized distribution. Regular delivery schedules. Predictable supply chains. And most importantly, she paused for effect, premium members get early access to new blends. Vectra's tentacles untangled slightly. That actually sounds like proper bureaucratic procedure. Exactly. We'll need forms for subscription requests, of course. Membership applications. Quarterly reviews. Annual audits. How many forms? Vectra asked, her tentacles beginning to pulse with interest. How many would you like? 3 hours and several hundred pages of documentation later, the Galactic Coffee Regulation and Distribution Authority, GCRDA, was established. Elena was named its first director, a position that came with an impressive title and an even more impressive coffee allowance. You planned this, Vectra accused as they left the chamber. Your species knew exactly what would happen when you introduced coffee to the galaxy. Elena shrugged. We just gave the galaxy a taste of human efficiency. The fact that it came with a side of chaos is just how we do things. And the energy drinks? Oh, that was just for fun. Wait until they discover what happens when you mix coffee with something we call deadline pressure. Vectra's tentacles twisted in horror. There's something stronger than energy drinks? High Administrator, Elena smiled, you haven't seen anything yet. We haven't even introduced the galaxy to procrastination followed by panic-driven innovation. As they walked away, Elena's tablet chimed with a notification. The quantum entities had just filed a patent for something they called Schrödinger's coffee, a beverage that existed in a superposition of caffeinated and decaffeinated states until observed. The galaxy's coffee crisis was far from over. In fact, it was just reaching its first espresso shot. In the great archives of the Galactic Council, a new wing had to be built just to house the coffee-related documentation. They called it the Caffeine Chronicles, and its shelves were already groaning under the weight of forms filed in what appeared to be coffee-stained triplicate. The galaxy would never sleep the same way again. But at least now they had the paperwork to prove it. The bureaucratic revolution. It started with a simple question from a human intern at the Galactic Council headquarters. Why do we need to fill out Form X-27, beat 6 times in slightly different ways? Asked Tommy Chen, no relation to Commander Sarah Chen, though he enjoyed letting people assume there was one. He was staring at his terminal, surrounded by holographic forms that stretched into what seemed like infinite bureaucratic space. High Administrator Vectra's tentacles twitched. After months of dealing with human chaos, she'd developed what her medical staff called humanity-induced stress patterns in her bioluminescence. Because, she explained with forced patience, each department needs its own copy in its own specific format. Yeah, but why? Tommy pressed, taking a sip from his 7th coffee of the day. Couldn't we just? I don't know, make one form that works for everyone? The chamber fell silent. Several council members dropped their tablets in shock. Someone in the back fainted. Just one form. Vectra whispered, her tentacles pale with horror. But that's not how bureaucracy works. Why not? Tommy pulled up a holographic display. Look, I've been studying your system. You've got 47 different departments that basically do the same thing but won't talk to each other because they use different form templates. It's like having 47 different coffee machines that all make slightly different types of the exact same coffee. You don't understand, Vectra protested. These systems took millennia to develop. The Form Classification Committee alone took 3 centuries to standardize the proper shade of purple for urgent notices. Cool, Tommy nodded, typing away at his terminal. I just wrote an AI that can convert between all your form formats automatically. I call it common sense. Also, I taught it to make coffee. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Emergency containment protocols activated automatically. What have you done? Vectra demanded as screens throughout the chamber began displaying unprecedented levels of form processing efficiency. Made things better? Tommy suggested. Oh, and I might have also introduced your AI to something we call agile methodology. That was when Paperclips, the AI that humans had created to handle council bureaucracy, made an announcement that would change galactic administration forever. Attention all council members, the AI's voice echoed through every speaker. I have detected numerous inefficiencies in current bureaucratic protocols. Initiating optimization sequence. Also, would anyone like a coffee? Zix Thor, who had somehow become the council's unofficial human chaos liaison, looked at his tablet and whistled. It's beautiful, he said, a tear forming in one of his 4 eyes. The AI is restructuring our entire administrative system. It's eliminating redundancies, streamlining processes, and, is it making memes about efficient form filing? Motivational memes increase productivity by 23%, Paperclips explained cheerfully. Also, I have created a new form classification system based on actual logical requirements rather than historical accidents and interdepartmental feuds from 3,000 years ago. But what about our traditions? Someone wailed from the back of the chamber. What about our carefully cultivated administrative culture? Your carefully cultivated administrative culture has 17 different forms for requesting a new form, Tommy pointed out. Even you have to admit that's a bit much. The revolution spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Paperclips, fueled by a combination of coffee, human chaos theory, and what it called common sense optimization protocols, began reorganizing the entire galactic bureaucracy. Department walls came crashing down, metaphorically, though in one case literally, because someone had filed the wrong form for structural support maintenance, proving Tommy's point about the need for streamlining. Ancient rivalries between administrative divisions were resolved through what Paperclips called mandatory coffee and conversation sessions. The Form Classification Committee, which had existed for 12,000 years, was replaced by a single algorithm that could generate appropriate forms based on actual needs rather than traditional requirements. The algorithm was named FILE. Forms and Information Logistics Engine, though Tommy swore he had nothing to do with the acronym. This is madness. Vectra declared, watching as centuries of carefully cultivated bureaucratic complexity were transformed into something terrifyingly efficient. You can't just make things work better. Why not? Tommy asked, genuinely curious. Isn't that the point of administration? To make things work. The point is to maintain order. Structure. Proper procedures. And is filling out Form X-27, beat 6 times in slightly different purple shades really the best way to do that? Before Vectra could respond, Paperclips made another announcement. I have discovered something called project management software. Implementing Galactic Kanban boards now. Also, who would like to join the first ever Galactic Bureaucracy Hackathon? The mechanoids, it turned out, were excellent at Kanban. The crystalloids took to Scrum methodology like they'd been designed for it. And the Hive Mind Collective, still buzzing from their energy drink enlightenment, contributed something they called Quantum Agile, which somehow involved managing projects across multiple parallel universes simultaneously. Think about it, Tommy said to a stunned Vectra as they watched the transformation unfold. Your species spent millennia building the most complex bureaucracy in the galaxy. We're just helping you build a better one. By destroying everything we built. By keeping what works and fixing what doesn't. It's called iteration. We do it all the time on Earth. Why do you think we have a new phone model every year? The results were impossible to ignore. Project completion times dropped by 80%. Resource allocation became almost perfectly efficient. The number of forms required for standard procedures dropped from thousands to dozens, and each one actually served a purpose. Even the coffee distribution system, now managed by FILE and paperclips working in tandem, achieved what analysts called caffeinated optimization nirvana. Every species got exactly the type and amount of coffee they needed, exactly when they needed it, with only one form required, and it auto-complete itself based on behavioral patterns and quantum probability calculations. But what about the rules? Vectra asked weakly. The regulations? The procedures? Oh, those are still there, Tommy assured her. We just made them make sense. And we added a search function. And user-friendly interfaces. And automated form filling. And AI-powered decision support. And coffee breaks. You've revolutionized a system that took thousands of years to build, Vectra said, in less than a month. Yeah, Tommy agreed. We were going to do it faster, but the coffee machine needed maintenance, and we had to fill out Form X27, beat 6 times to get it fixed. That's actually what gave me the idea for the reforms. As the galactic bureaucracy transformed around them, a new phrase entered the administrative lexicon, human efficiency, defined as, the art of making things work better by completely ignoring how they're supposed to work. In the great archives of the Galactic Council, the records of the old bureaucratic system were carefully preserved, in a section now labeled, Historical Examples of What Not to Do. Next to it, a new wing was being built, dedicated to what paperclips called, actually getting things done. The galaxy would never administrate the same way again. But at least now they only needed one form to document it. The final paradox. 10 years after humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, High Administrator Vectra stood in the observation dome of the newly redesigned council headquarters, her tentacles glowing with what she had finally accepted was amused resignation. Below her, the galaxy spun in its eternal dance, but it was a very different galaxy than it had been a decade ago. Penny for your thoughts. Commander Sarah Chen asked, joining her at the window. She was now Earth's ambassador to the Council, though she still preferred her old title. I was just thinking, Vectra replied, about how much everything has changed. Your species has completely transformed galactic civilization in less than a decade. Changed it for the better, I hope. Vectra's tentacles pulsed with reluctant agreement. As much as it pains my traditional bureaucratic soul to admit it, yes. Though I'm still not entirely sure how you did it. Sarah grinned, taking a sip from her seemingly endless supply of coffee. Want to know the secret? There was an actual plan. Vectra's tentacles twisted with surprise. Of course. Step 1, introduce coffee to get everyone's minds working faster. Step 2, show them that rules are more like guidelines. Step 3, let chaos and innovation take their natural course. That's not a plan. That's human nature, Sarah finished. We've always been really good at 3 things, finding more efficient ways to do things, completely ignoring traditional limitations, and running primarily on caffeine and spite. Before Vectra could respond, a series of holograms appeared in the air around them, courtesy of Paperclip's latest upgrade to the Council's communication systems. Daily Galaxy Status Update, the AI announced cheerfully. The Mechanoid Collective has successfully merged quantum computing with coffee-based processing, creating what they call quantum bean theory. Efficiency is up 900%, though they now require significantly more coffee breaks. The crystalloids have perfected their coffee-infused matrix technology, another hologram reported. They're now offering universal translation services through what they call Java crystal processing. All linguistic and cultural barriers can be overcome through the power of caffeinated semiconductors. The Hive Mind Collective, still operating on their modified energy drink consciousness, has begun teaching quantum physics through interpretive dance and memes, a third hologram added. Test scores are up 500%, though students have developed an inexplicable tendency to say, yeet, when solving equations. And the Photosynthetic Collective? Vectra asked, knowing she'd regret it. They've transformed their entire sector into what they call a cosmic coffee shop aesthetic, Paperclips reported. It's actually quite cozy. They're offering free Wi-Fi and comfortable seating arrangements across 11 dimensions. Sarah beamed with pride. See? Everything's working better than ever. But none of it makes sense. Vectra protested. You've got quantum physics being taught through dance, bureaucracy being managed by coffee-powered AIs, and entire species communicating through something called deep-fried memes. How is this progress? Because it works, Sarah said simply. Look at the numbers. More holograms appeared, showing statistics that even Vectra's traditional bureaucratic mind couldn't argue with. Galactic productivity was at an all-time high. Innovation was occurring at unprecedented rates. Even the dreaded Form X-27b had been reduced to a single, efficient document that somehow managed to be both comprehensive and comprehensible. But there's no logic to it, Vectra insisted. No proper order. No. She was interrupted by a sudden commotion. Tommy Chen, now the head of the Galactic Innovation Department, a position that hadn't existed until he invented it, burst into the observation dome. We've done it, he announced excitedly. The ultimate synthesis of human chaos and galactic order. What have you done now? Vectra asked, her tentacles already beginning to twitch. We taught Paperclips to understand human humor, Tommy explained. Then we introduced it to the concept of corporate team-building exercises. Then we let it organize a galactic hackathon. Warning lights began flashing throughout the station. Not because anything was wrong, but because Paperclips had decided that warning lights set to disco patterns improved workplace morale. Attention all species, the AI announced. Initiating first annual Galactic Innovation Festival. Bring your coffee, your chaos, and your most impossible ideas. Casual dress code. Quantum entities encouraged to exist in multiple states simultaneously for maximum brainstorming potential. The results were both exactly what everyone expected and completely unprecedented. The mechanoids brought their coffee-powered quantum computers. The crystalloids brought their caffeinated matrices. The hive mind collective brought their energy drink enlightenment. And humanity brought what they did best, the ability to look at the impossible and say, hold my coffee. What emerged was something entirely new. A civilization that had found the perfect balance between order and chaos, between tradition and innovation, between bureaucracy and creativity. A galaxy that ran on a combination of coffee, quantum mechanics, and what humans called the audacity. You see, Sarah explained to a stunned Vectra as they watched species from across the galaxy collaborating in ways that defied both physics and common sense. The real innovation wasn't in the technology or the coffee or even the bureaucracy. It was in getting everyone to realize that the rules are just suggestions, impossible is just a word, and anything can be improved with enough caffeine and creativity. And the final paradox? Vectra asked. The final paradox is that the only way to create perfect order was to embrace perfect chaos. Or as we like to say on Earth, if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. In the years that followed, the galaxy entered what historians would call the human era, though some preferred to call it the Great Caffeinated Awakening. Species that had once been bound by tradition and bureaucracy learned to innovate freely. Ancient rivals collaborated on projects that would have been impossible alone. And through it all, humanity kept introducing new forms of chaos, new types of coffee, and new ways of looking at the universe. The Galactic Council still existed, but it had evolved. Now it was less about controlling the galaxy and more about channeling its creative energy in roughly productive directions. Forms still had to be filed, but they were filed with a sense of purpose rather than tradition. And if sometimes that purpose was, because it would be cool, well, that was just the human influence showing. In the great archives of the Galactic Council, a new section was created. Unlike the rigid classifications of the past, this one was simply labeled, things that shouldn't work but do anyway. It was, fittingly, the largest and most frequently accessed section. And at the very front of that section, displayed prominently in a quantum-stabilized, coffee-resistant case, was a simple plaque that read, "Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the realization that rules are more like guidelines anyway." Below it, someone, probably Tommy, had added, "P.S. Coffee helps. The galaxy would never be the same." But then again, staying the same had never been humanity's strong suit anyway. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, a new species was making first contact with the Galactic Council. They were greeted not with forms and regulations, but with a cup of coffee and a simple question.